Hello, my name's Michael Conneely, and this video is the introduction video to a series of 4 other videos all about the nodes of the moon change sign on the 12th of April 2022. It's a huge energy change. It needs to be understood. And this introduction video simply reviews the astrological ways of understanding the new energy that will enter into our lives. So it's a bit methodological, it's a bit dry, but it's super important to understand, because this way you arrive at the true statement of what energies are hitting you, and thus can consider how best to change your life path, how blessed indeed, to manifest a needed new you. So the main parts are actually part 1, the nodes of the moon change signs, Rahu into Aries, Ketu into Libra. Part 2, the nodes of the moon change nakshatras in the 18-month period, where the nodes are going through Aries and Libra. They actually go through 6 different nakshatras, and that has an important to understand effect. The part 3 video and blog is all about the nodes of the moon activating key houses in your birth chart, in my birth chart. And there is then a very important part about where nodes of the moon transit over your natal planets. That's if you or I have planets in your birth chart in Aries or Libra. They will be activated by a nodal transit. And then the final consideration covered by this post is the super important background of interpretive techniques that need to be used to fully understand how energies will be impacting you in the 18 months to come. So there is a blog accompanying this, and the blog starts off with the chart of the nodes of the moon changing sign on the 12th of April 2022. So this change of sign will bring major life changes for most people. It's really important to understand the new energy that will come into your life in April and for the coming 18 months while the nodes transit through these new signs. And the important thing to say as well is that actually at this time many other planets are changing sign now. So there will be tension and uncertainty and stress, and a strong desire and need for each of us to define our needed new life path ahead, and even a new measure of identity, how we see ourselves and how we project in the world. I went walking today on the windy and storm-swept coast near our house in the beautiful west of Ireland. The waves were huge. The sky was alternately grey and sunny. But suddenly through the storm clouds a huge rainbow appeared indeed over 2 hills, each with a sense of huge sacred energies to the ancient Irish. And they were visible across the storm-racked bay, Knocknarea and Benbulben. And I felt so cheered by this omen of passing storm in our life and sacred destination for us to achieve and manifest. A good omen, I felt. We've all been feeling the new path coming, especially since the true node measurement of the nodes entered Aries Libra for March the 16th. And this blog post and video will, I think, help each of us understand what sort of changes need to come into our life now, will come into our life now, and how to prepare and how to produce the most wonderful possible manifestation of these new energies. So on the 12th of April 2022, Rahu, the north node of the moon, enters the Vedic sign of Aries, and Ketu, the south node of the moon, enters the Vedic sign of Libra. Now the nodes will stay in their new sign for 18 months until the 31st of October 2023. And it's important to understand that the nodal axis brings eclipses with them into the Aries-Libra sign axis. So we need to know what houses in our birth chart of Aries-Libra, and we need to know what planets are in our birth chart in Aries-Libra. So just a background note, remember the nodes always transit retrograde. So they go in at the end of a sign and transit towards the start of a sign. And note that in this post, the degrees referred to use the sidereal zodiac of Vedic astrology. So what's the difference between Vedic and Western astrology? Well, I would say our Vedic chart, our sidereal zodiac chart anchored to a fixed star, is Vedic astrology, whereas Western astrology uses as its anchor point the moving position of the sun on the day of vernal equinox. So I would say Vedic astrology depicts our fate, our destiny, our incarnational life path, and all that manifests from that, and all that unfolds from that. Whereas I would say that Western astrology, using the tropical zodiac, essentially depicts our egoic self, because it's sun-based, about our egoic self. And in my readings, I always cover both your Western astrology, especially Western psychodynamic astrology, but also the vastness of your Vedic astrology. Both are needed for us to understand ourself, our life path, and our future, and our relationships. So what we absolutely need to do now, at this time of the nodes of the moon changing sign, is understand and work with these new energies that are strongly forming now and will unfold, both on the material plane and on the spiritual plane. And this intro blog post and video lists 5 categories of astrological techniques for understanding your present and future energies in the 18 months to come. We need to understand how the energy created by these astrological changes will affect us, how the energy created will change us. We each of us now need to plan what to do about the new energy pressure matrix we feel for the highest earthly and spiritual benefits to each of us on our life path ahead, for our sense of identity here on our earthly life path ahead. So in this introduction, I'd just like to bring to your attention 5 predictive factors that I say it's essential to be able to use, and certainly I include that if you ask me for a reading about the new nodes change sign to Aries Libra in your life. So first of all, the part 1 blog post and video, which is upcoming next, understands the nature of Rahu, the north node, transiting Aries, and Ketu, the south node, transiting Libra. So part 1 is about the nodes in their signs. Part 2 is all about the nodes in the Nakshatras they will be transiting. We definitely need to understand the energy changes as the nodes of the moon transit through the 3 Nakshatras contained by the sign of Aries and the 3 Nakshatras contained by the sign of Libra. The Nakshatras are the magnificent, supremely declarative 27 sign lunar zodiac of Vedic astrology. I've done a blog and a video about each available online. And the guidance they give us as to our personal consciousness and our emotionally based self and our relationship scripts are simply wonderful. So see my separate part 2 blog post and video all about the nodes transiting in the coming 18 months. First of all, Rahu transiting through the 3 Nakshatras within the sign of Aries, Kritika, Bharani and Ashwini. And Ketu transiting through the 3 Nakshatras within the sign of Libra, Chitra, Swati and Vishaka. The nakshatra placement of the transiting nodes manifests the energy and manifestation of the nodes, and the nodes transit through each nakshatra modifies and affects how the ruling planet of each nakshatra will manifest in the energy matrix and in our life. Okay, moving on to part 3. The nodes transiting through the houses in our birth chart. It's absolutely crucial to understand how Rahu North Node energy will manifest in our life in terms of the house that is Aries in our Vedic birth chart, counted from our Vedic moon sign, but also the house that is Vedic Aries in our Vedic birth chart counted from our Vedic ascendant sign or Lagna. You have to look at both. Calculated from the moon sign is more about the play of our emotionally based consciousness. Calculated from the ascendant sign is about how we'll be manifesting in the world and how events on the worldly level will be affecting us. We also have to take into account that Rahu, the North Node, casts 5th house and 9th house aspects in our chart. So we have to look, what are the 5th and 9th house aspects from Aries? Because those 2 additional houses will also feel some energy and force for change. And so these are the houses in your particular birth chart that are Leo and Sagittarius. That's all about Rahu in your chart, but also we have to understand about Ketu, the South Node, hugely powerful, immensely powerful too. So we have to identify what house in your birth chart is Libra, where Ketu is transiting, counted from your Vedic moon sign, and what house is Libra in your chart, counted from your Vedic ascendant sign or Lagna. It's necessary to know what houses will be identified counting from both moon sign and Lagna. And we'll be looking at the explanation of that in these subsequent videos. This is just video 1, which is detailing the interpretive techniques which need to be understood and used to actually grasp the fullness of what's coming to you. The next thing, and it's mentioned as point 4 in the blog post, in the intro blog post, is crucially to note and understand which planets in your birth chart are in Aries and Libra. So which planets in your birth chart in your life have Rahu transiting over them in Aries, have Ketu transiting over them in Libra. This will massively affect your experience of the upcoming 18 months. So see my part 4 blog post and video on this. And by the way, all these factors I mention are clearly sort of set out and written up in the intro blog post and video. But there are also, obviously, the current backdrop of predictive factors which will affect you and need to be understood now and in the upcoming 18 months. So first of all, I would mention the Dasha or Vedic predictive period. The Dashas are more powerful than transits, but they're more in the background than transits. Their effect is huge at all time in our life from birth. So that will also be affecting you, as well as Rahu transiting through Aries and Ketu transiting through Libra. And as a second background predictive factor, you'll need to have definition of the transits you'll be experiencing in the coming 18 months. And indeed, it's important to note, as I've said, that several planets change sign just during April. Crucially, these are Jupiter, Neptune and Saturn, but also Venus, Mars and Mercury. So this atmosphere of hinge of change now, of living on the edge of change, can create chilling or uncertain feelings, fear. But it also has wonderful potential if only we can identify it. It actually has potential for deep mining into our fuller needed new life, our needed new persona that is more appropriate for this stage of walking our life path, our destiny path, of walking our incarnational life purpose path. We have to see now that some things, some scripts, some patterns in our life must die now. And many of us will be searching for a definition of what must be created new, born anew. And hopefully many of us will actually find the new identity and the new path forward now. So all of us will be feeling to varying degrees upset and death and rebirth and major hinge of change now at the start of this node's changing sign. And of course, it's also important to be aware that regarding the change of sign of the nodes of the moon, that at this time, all the planets are to one side of the nodal axis. So that means there's also a huge, fated, tense, preposterous even, divisive even, Kalsarpa yoga energy at this time too. So what other predictive factors do we need to bring into account to understand what is the divine purpose of the change of sign of the nodes of the moon? What is our best path forward? And so we would certainly need to look at our Varshfal or solar return chart for this time. And regarding the Varshfal chart, where is your munta, your one-size-fits-all indicator of your year ahead? And what is your planetary year lord now? It's also very important to know about the position of your secondary progressed moon. So this is using the day for a year or secondary progressions of Western astrology. And day for a year progressions are quite a decisive predictive factor for your year ahead. But I also use, and wouldn't be without, using two wonderful and accurate predictive age points from psychodynamic Western astrology. These are our individuation age point and our nodal age point. Our individuation age point starts off from the ascendant and takes 72 years to go clockwise round the rim of our chart, carrying on again if we live beyond 72. Our nodal age point starts off at the position of the node of the moon in our Vedic birth chart and goes the other way, clockwise round the chart, taking 72 years. And they are very decisive. So the individuation age point describes your unfolding awareness of the nature of your egoic self and learning to manage that and bring a divine perspective to it, a more and better perspective to your egoic self. But the nodal age point genuinely, wonderfully states the whisper of your soul to you from the astral at any particular point in your life. And as you might expect, it so very often cross-correlates to something key being said in your Vedic predictive astrology of this time. Now, because these factors of predictive analysis that I've just reviewed are so individual, I won't be explaining those in the blog posts and video about the nodes of the moon changing sign. In those videos, parts 1 to 4, I will just be looking at the nodes in new signs, in new nakshatras, what houses they will activate, and what planets they will transit. But you do need to be aware that this net of predictive wonderment of analysis is available, and certainly I use these factors in all my readings. Okay, so please now go on to having listened to the introduction, please now go on to the part 1 blog post and video, which are all about the nodes of the moon changing sign.